This is such an amazing life. Like this life is an exploration of losing yourself in time, of losing yourself in that which isn't true, to what's actually happening, to the true nature of all things. So in the human expression there is this belief that happens, this dynamic that happens, that this energy which makes it seem like what's actually sitting here now is a human being that lives in time. So somebody that is in relationship with all things. So somebody that has a life, that's walked in here, that is sitting looking, where actually all there is presence, giving the appearance that it's looking through these bodies, giving an appearance that it's experiencing things that are separate. But actually in actuality, all that ever is presence everywhere, is aliveness, is life, beingness everywhere. Or consciousness, if you need to put it in that term to make it more non-dual, or knowing. All there is knowing. So right now there is a knowing of all things. So all things appear, and in some bodies there is an energetic centre which feels like that knowing is located somewhere, that there is someone in here looking out. Or even if you feel like your consciousness, there's consciousness in here looking out, or behind you looking out. But actually all there is everything. There is all things appearing. There is presence. And it's so beautiful that that word is even called a present, as in like a gift. Yeah. Because this is the gift. It just doesn't feel like it's the gift when you're separate from it. Because when you're separate from it, you always feel like you're not enough, and it's scary. There's always a seed of seeking there, always, no matter what. So even here, coming here, like I could never have done this before, because I'd have always had the sensation of needing to be something better than I was. Whereas now I don't have that sensation, so I don't mind sitting here and not having anything to say, or having something to say. I don't mind what it looks like, because there's not somebody that's requiring anything to be a certain way. The seeker always is giving the push to want to live in the next moment. He always wants something from the next moment, and wants to avoid something from the past. And nothing can ever be got. What could we ever fill up our barrels with? What could we ever fill ourselves up with? There's nothing out there that's worth it. Even though that sounds so terrible to the Western mind, because we're like, there's thousands of things. I could become a successful writer, I could become rich, I could find my soulmate, I could have kids. There's all these ideas that we have out there that will give us something, but actually nothing will. It's all the same but different. Same. Even the being really successful, if you're like the Nobel Peace Prize winner, or you're like a top expert at Harvard University or Cambridge University or something, and you've written loads of books, it's just the same colours, it's the same sensations, you have the same feelings coming up, and none of those feelings stay or are permanent. None of those feelings will give you anything. They'll give you a buzz, so it'll feel good when you get an applause, or or a kick in the stomach when you leave the EU. Whatever it is. But all these feelings come and go. We imagine that one day we'll keep one of those feelings. We'll keep a feeling that we'll do something. So we'll have the kid, or we'll do a certain action. Even we'll get enlightened and we'll be able to keep a certain feeling. But there's not, feelings are something that come and go. They fill everything up with colour and sensation, and then they go and they transform into something else. You can never get to a particular place. But we have this imagining that the future will do that. And because we have this seed of separation, it validates that separation by saying, yes, there is a problem now, and you have to work hard to get the next thing. And we've actually got ourselves in a pickle as humans, even though, because we only live for 80 years, we never really work it out. But we've got ourselves in a pickle because we're teaching our kids and we're always validating that we're not enough and that we need more. And we don't work it out, we don't work the game out, because we can get more in a way. We can we go to university and we can leave university and get home, we can get mortgages. So we're always on this treadmill of getting, and they give us highs. It gives a nice feeling to get this new thing or to have this new thing. But then it passes, so then you want the new thing. And our whole society is set up like that. And the problem, so if you're not happy, the problem is elsewhere. The problem is emigration, or the problem is your neighbour, or the problem is not enough sunlight, or the problem is a physical illness that you have. So we never question the way in which we see things or the way in which we live our life. We always believe what society is telling us. That it's because you haven't got your life right and you need more things, or you need it to look a different way. Even the eco story is sold to us like that. Not that I'm against the eco story, I'm pro it, but like even that sold us to as a new thing to have. Suddenly we've got to have all the eco stuff. You've got to have all the eco brands. The eco now, you've got to have the eco clothes. It becomes a new thing to seek out. And this really is radical. This isn't something like that you can just invest and buy a new brand of shopping or listen to it a few times and that will be heard. This is really radical. It's suggesting to you that your whole life has been based on a lie. That what you believe to be true and what you believe happiness to be is not the truth. And the most beautiful part of it is your nature is the freedom that you seek. But it's not something that could possibly ever be found in time. And it's not something that you could have or hold on to. It already is. It's that which knows the person that's seeking for something better. It's what's happening. And there has to be a shift over, not just the recognition of that knowing, there has to energetically be a shift over from being that bounded person that's always moving to get something in time to this presence, to what's happening. So there has to be a collapse of that location, that somebody that's experiencing life, because that somebody will always seek for the next moment. And this is the end of seeking. Absolute end to absolute completion. There's no need for this to go forward. Obviously, if we're in physical pain, then in physical pain we attempt to say if we really needed the toilet and we attempt to go to the toilet, or if we're starving, hungry, we attempt to eat. But it's no longer about completing yourself in that action. This is just a bodily sensation that needs relief. But you cannot find completion. What could be better than this? And the mind has lots of imagining. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe here it's like, yeah, I'm here. Or maybe it's like, oh God, these chairs are uncomfortable. Oh God, why have I come? But it's the end of that dynamic. This is it. There is nowhere else to get. But that's really radical and full on. And for someone that's always been used to finding the solution in the next moment, it's a complete energetical shift over. So everything that you believe to be better isn't. Anything. And anything that you believe is the problem isn't. That's really radical. So I can assure you what you think the problem is isn't the problem. But we're so used to living in that. And we've got amazing minds which are problem solvers. So, like, most of us could pick up the remote controls. This is a really complicated TV. I don't even turn it on. But but most of us could get the controls, and after maybe like 2 hours we could work out how to use this TV. So we have these amazing brains that can work out these things. But we then took it on to be who we are and believe that we could find happiness in that problem solving. Happiness isn't, so the way we're taught is that we have this mission. So say I gave you the mission of working this TV out. So you have the mission, you can't see all the boxes because I've pulled the table over, but there's like all these different boxes down there. So I could give you that mission and we think, okay, so happiness is when I've completed that. We're not even aware that we're doing that, but unconsciously it's happening. So we're not even enjoying working out how to put on the TV. We're waiting to the moment of having worked it out. So we're waiting until we've completed the task. So this is what we were taught at school, and this is such an unconscious functioning that's happening in the body. We are always taught in school to do these things. So we're not taught to follow our natural passions, we're taught to do these projects. And the way that we get through these projects that we don't really want to do is we fixate on the end result. And we fixate on that completion. But it doesn't work. So you can have a moment's high, like you've worked out the TV and you're like, woohoo! But then it's gone. Then you feel uncomfortable again because you're always living in this uncomfortable world of doing what I've got to do, what I've got to be, and getting validation at the end of it. So you no longer live for what's actually happening. You're living for that moment of validation at the end of the task. This goes on for so many years, and we're so strongly programmed in it as a society. Like, this is what schooling is. Schooling is all, you've got to sit there for 10 minutes and be quiet, and then you'll get your cookie, and you're like... So it's all about the cookie. This is repetition constantly. It's being told that. And if I suppose most of us here were ones that didn't get on that well at school, because then our programming most probably got more painful programming. So those ones that were really intelligent and always got the answers right, they get the better programming because they get more treats. Whereas the ones that were like, oh God, this is so boring, and like didn't get the answers right, they didn't get enough reward. So therefore they feel more sense of frustration with having to do things. Whereas you get some kids, remember in the school, that were just so excited about tasks, they were just like, yes, me, I will do it. And there was maybe like then another 20 people in the class that didn't want to do it. But they would be excited to take the register for the teacher, they would be excited to answer the questions, they were excited by it all, and they always got things right. Whereas then there's another 20, 25 kids in the class that are being ignored, really, and are just constantly doing what they don't want to do. And really, what this message is about is coming back to freely acting. We are scared of this because we've always been told that if we just act without thinking, without this person that's controlling everything, we will be very bad people. This is what society has told us and conditioned us to believe. You will be very bad if you just act. And that's what I'm doing. I wouldn't be able to do these talks if I had any sense of what I was doing. I might be making sense to you guys, but I'm just actually opening the mouth, and the mouth's like, yeah, it goes for it, and off it goes. And this is how the whole of life has to be lived, is that free fall. Otherwise you will always be unhappy. And it's that radical. You will always be unhappy when you bind yourself by the image of time. You have to be something. And surprisingly enough, when you stop acting by the rules of the somebody, of being this somebody, actually people like you more. They feel this freedom that they can be more themselves, and they're like, they feel more relaxed around that energy. It's really ironic because you think that you're going to let out this big monster, and there's most probably going to be a phase of letting out a big monster because you've been repressing yourself for so long. So there'll be a phase of like, I don't want to do it, because you've been forced to be someone that you didn't ever want to be. And so in there's this frustration and anger underlying stuff. Like all those times when you were a kid where you didn't want to sit freaking still in the schoolroom, where you didn't want to do what they said, where you wanted to just run around the playground for no apparent reason. And that's so beautiful, the kid just running around the playground for no apparent reason, but you had to sit there. And I'm not saying that we don't have rules and that we don't have discipline, but you'll be amazed at how naturally we have that discipline in us when we stop trying to control it. like how compassionate and empathetic we are as humans, you'll be amazed how naturally we want to do the nice thing. We're not these big bad species that we think of. Look, if you look what we're actually doing, even though most of us are unhappy, we're managing to live millions of people in very small areas. So there is a natural niceness there. The reason we do the bad things is because we're repressing ourselves. Naturally, I can't be bothered to be as greedy as all other humans are. Like, I don't naturally have that. When you stop identifying, you don't have that natural greed. Not that natural greed, you don't have that greed and thirst that other people do. You just, like, it's nice to have things. I mean, things are nice, but, I mean, like, I look around this room and what I think about things is, I think, well, there's a good chance I'll break most of them. If this was my home, I would just take all the things out. And then I would have some sofas and maybe some pictures and plants, but, like, I would most probably knock them over. And then you'd have more space to, like, dance and move around. And this is reduced things for my mum, actually. She came here, she was like, she cut it in half. Like, these things, you find the less and less you stop trying to be someone, the less and less you actually need. So then all the problems that we have about our society and producing too much will begin to disappear. You wouldn't be bothered. You couldn't be bothered to clean them all the time. Like, oh, what is the point of this? To clean the dust off this one and this one. Oh, and in there. And then the natural passion comes up, so the passion of that body. And each body has their unique passions and their unique role. So if you're the caring type, you'll be the caring type. If you're the dog whispering type, the 3 dogs, and then you'll do that one. So this really is, you could say, the path of the warrior, because it means being yourself. And that's what the whole of society has always told you are not allowed to be. It's always told you you're not enough as yourself, and that you have to be something better. You have to be more impressive. You have to have a Hummer car with these big wheels. You have to have these huge houses. You have to have this badge saying, I am this. Just to be as you are. So this message is, part of it is by being yourself, you stop being human, but then also at the same time you're fully human. When I say you stop being human, is that energy that's identified with that illusion collapses, with that seeker collapses, that needs to be something else, and then the body becomes truly who it is. In every moment it just does what it wants to do. And the mind's like, well, that's not possible, because then I would never go to work. Well, maybe that's what's meant to happen. But what about my house? Who says you have to live in a house? Who says all these rules that you've been taught are the right rules? Who says that life won't provide if you don't do all these things that society tells you? You become so bound by what it's telling you. It's so crazy, the mentality of society. It's so narrow. And everyone believes it's right. But this is why it's the way of the warrior, because it's stepping out of that. So naturally, and this isn't your effort, but everything you think you know to be true has to be questioned, and that which is true will remain. And the only thing that remains, or the only thing that truly is presence. But presence is not found in a thing. This aliveness, this awakeness is not found in a thing. So it doesn't belong to anything in this room. Yet, is there anything which isn't awake? Is there anything which isn't known, or isn't here, or isn't present? So amazing. I love this subject so much. I can feel the energies in the room, and there's like there's a little bit going into it, and then there's a little part of the room like I need to do something. You really don't. It's like, no, I need to do something else, something other. And there really isn't something else. So that energy that's wanting something else, that energy that wants to get somewhere, isn't true. This is the illusion. This is what needs to be explored.
It's a little bit painful and good in the same time.
Yeah.
It's the energy myself. I can feel some special. I don't know what it is, but a little contraction you talk about.
Yeah.
Self-contraction. I can feel, observe myself in a body.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit painful and good at the same time.
That's really nice.
Just explain it.
Yeah, no, I think that's when the awakening's happening. So when this is resonating, because the natural, so presence, even though it doesn't have or contain a colour, because it's not anything, but it's so free. In a way, the essence of all things is like making love to itself in every appearance. So it's total and utter love. So that, I think, is most probably what you're associating with pleasure, like that's beginning to resonate, and when I'm speaking there's a hearing of that. But then the energy of that person is still contracted inside the body, and still the reason that it's painful is because it wants to move somewhere else. And also when it's not being fed, and when it's deconstructing, for some reason, I don't understand it, but it gets, the energies get tight and then they're releasing, like they get really tight. Like, you know how sometimes, I think when you hurt, no, I don't know if that's true, I was going to say about hurting yourself, but there's something about the energies, in waking up, people's energies, that contraction gets really, really tight at points, and then it's releasing and tight and releasing. But even that contraction, that sense of discomfort, that sense of the person that's bound, and the reason why it's uncomfortable is because it's trying to move. So it's like it's judging this unconsciously. This isn't conscious. It's judging this as not enough, and then it wants to go somewhere else. And really the natural way of things is such deep relaxation. There's no sense that the next moment is better. But that energy unconsciously is contracted, so it feels like somebody's in here, and then it's trying energetically to move to the next moment, and it always gives a little taste of restlessness. And when this subject's pointing it out, it's like you become more aware of it. When you were just seeking prior and you weren't aware of this subject, you just were more focused on getting. Whereas now you're more focused on that restlessness rather than the getting. Because what could possibly give you it? What could possibly relax that energy? no matter what you imagine, it won't work. It just relaxes when it relaxes. And the only thing that needs to happen and will happen is the exploration of it. And that's happening, like we're doing that exploration. And even by going into non-duality, there's been an exploration of it.
Did you talk on this online retreat to me about the intellectual awakening?
He's the intellectual, yeah.
Yeah, and you said, because I told you that I don't believe in myself only as a only as a sound, Asbjørn, it's a sound, and
yeah.
my thoughts, I feel that they are like sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't believe in. I've heard Byron Katie and these questions: is it true?
Yeah.
And I brainwashed myself. I don't believe in thinking anymore.
Yeah.
Somehow. But then you talked about it's the energy, energetical
yeah.
Awakening.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said you will not feel the separation anymore. Sometimes it will happen that you don't feel the separation. You will be oneness, I think, or something like that. So.
I don't remember our conversation.
No, yeah, but
But I normally do define the two. Like I say that there's this energetical awakening and the intellectual awakening. And really it's just me trying to define two different, there's so many different awakenings that happen. I mean, even the way that you say you've reconditioned yourself into not believing in your thinking, that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's a huge freedom as compared to what you were before when you believed everything. Like when people are being totally thrown around by their thoughts all the time, they don't even know their thoughts. They just think that's reality. So that's a beautiful thing. But particularly the way I speak, there's two big awakenings that happen. There is this awakening that can happen where it's recognized. So I'm sure there's quite a few people had this here, where it's recognized that either that you as that separate entity aren't the experiencer of life, or that you don't exist. It's a split second where everything clears, and then it's seen so clearly that separate you isn't the experiencer. There is something else grander, bigger experiencing this, and it's kind of recognized. And after that awakening, that's always kind of tasted. Even though sometimes you feel like you've got it, you've lost it, you've tasted that. Like that's known. And I would say that's more the intellectual awakening, because it's not the energetical awakening of the seeking collapse, but normally that happens first. Then after that, the energy of the seeker collapsed. So that energy of a person that's always trying to get things in the next moment collapse. And that's the end of suffering. That a lot of people stop at that first stage that I'm talking about, and then they think that's it. That recognition is enough.
But the other thing is nothing you can do with that. You have to. You can't feel that you will go away, or
no, but you can't.
I don't know what.
But no, there is nothing that you can.
You said you could feel that you wasn't separate anymore. But who can do that? Who can feel that? If I don't exist.
Yeah.
That's the
that
problem.
That presence does.
But I feel I exist, but I want to fall away in the void.
But that's the really beautiful part. So it's not that the presence does, it's that the presence stops being bound in an illusion, and then everything is simply awake. but not happening to anyone anymore, and it's known and not known. They can't, but it's not, so you don't get to own it, so in no way can you claim it in time. It just, that is the way it is. Things are no longer divided, and that energy of feeling like in here, like there's something that needs to be got, disappears.
It's very strong.
Yeah, it's really strong. I mean, this is why people can work 18 hours a day, because they've got such a strong seeking energy. It's very powerful, the seeking energy. It's powerful in the sense of it makes us do so many things. So many things. It's really...
It slows down a little bit last year.
Yeah. And eventually it will just crumble the more and more it gets explored. But a lot of it is the not acting out of it. But you can't do that, because if you attempted to not act it out, then it would be seeking again.
Yeah.
It's just that the energy has less and less games to try and hold on to. So there's less places for that seeker to hide. So therefore it begins to unravel. But it's not someone's doing. Like when it began to happen here, there were so many different awakenings, but then when the real stuff started was when I went to live in Australia in the forest. So before that there'd been the recognition of everything. There'd been so many awakenings that I knew this subject inside and out, but there was still that strong energy of seeking. And then I went through 3.5 years of, even when I got there I knew pretty much it wasn't in the world, but really, really that energy stopped trying to grab onto anything. There was nothing that I could imagine anymore that would bring me freedom. And it's not depressing, that sounds depressing, but it can be depressing at points when you're really strongly suffering, but there's nothing left in the world for you anymore. Like there was nothing positive that I could imagine that would free me. I couldn't imagine being successful, or the money, or the home. There was no possibility. So that stopped. That trying to get those things stopped. Then the other side of like all the things that made me unhappy, I began to see that they also didn't have the power to make me unhappy. So like environments and your partner particularly. My boyfriends were always a strong place of, yes, they are definitely the ones making me unhappy. So it's not just that side of like believing that things can make you happy, but also that which you think makes you unhappy. And this is in a way harder, because we're so addicted to believing that there are things that can make you unhappy. But there's nothing that can make me unhappy. There is pain that could happen. So you could come over here and beat me, and that would be very incredibly painful. But nobody out there is in control of giving me freedom or taking away my freedom. And that's the same with all these bodies, because who you are is that awakeness, not the body. The body is an instrument of pleasure and pain, and pleasure and pain come and go. They don't give you anything. They're like the sound of the breeze coming and going. They're like smells coming and going, the light coming and going. Pleasure and pain comes and goes. Fear, anger, jealousy comes and goes. Joy, ecstasy, sexuality comes and goes. They don't bring anything inherently in them. They're just different sensations, but we're so tricked by it. And we believe, I think it's measurably stronger actually, the idea of what can make us unhappy. And that's what we're always trying to avoid. So we try to force people to be a particular way. You cannot be this. It doesn't mean you become a doormat. I'm more fiery now than I've ever been. I'm more prepared to say no than I've ever been. It's not being a doormat that I'm talking about. It's so beautiful. There's nothing that can make you unhappy. The mind's like, well, I think there is. Through my work, And you see, you feel victim to everything because you have your idea of your work and your money. But because you believe that you have to be someone, you're hooked into the game that you have to work. And you most probably don't want to work. But you're hooked into the fear of it.
But there's a security. I don't want to leave the job. I want the money. I want the security of it.
Yeah.
And I worked, had a work, and I didn't like it. And that have been very many changes in the way I live.
Yeah.
But the last thing, I don't want to give up my
Security.
job and
Yeah.
the
All of this has to be
money
explored.
and
But these energies, you don't have to just, I'm not saying quit and be that radical, like go home and quit. But all of those energies need exploration. And it's not you exploring it, but the energy needs to explore it. That is it true? I mean, this is what this is what everybody's doing in society, and this is how society keeps going on and actually being really unfair as well. I'm not pro the working out of our society, because it makes us all feel like that. The most radical thing you can do is to see that your freedom isn't dependent on that. And it really, really takes courage though.
Yeah.
This part is really scary. It's really scary, the idea of not having money, these coins that we transfer from food and feeling stuck.
maybe that's what happened, and then when it don't happen anymore, then it's this.
Yeah. Yeah, it just needs to be explored. Like it's not that that anybody needs to stop working, but these hooks which well, I suppose there's a reason why the Buddha and Jesus were not Buddha, Jesus, Ramana and Jesus were homeless. Because often with the trading of money, there is a trading of yourself as well. If you don't feel like you trade that, then it doesn't matter. But often people, when I say that, I mean like you're selling yourself. Like you're afraid of something, so you keep on working to not face that fear, or you keep on producing to not face that fear. So it's not that I'm against work in any way, but most people work to keep an identity and because they're too scared to stop, which doesn't seem like the basis for a happy life. I don't know if that's like everybody, some people are lucky and they fall into a job that they really love, but most people that I come across, their whole life is based on always doing things out of fear and lack, and it's never going to work. If that's the way that you're living, then that's got to be questioned, otherwise you're going to keep being bound. You're going to keep believing that it's true, and there's no truth in it. There's just no truth in any idea. But these ideas energetically hold in the body, like they're in the gut and they're in the tummy, and so your impulse just is to do the opposite, to try and relax it. And it doesn't even go questioned, it just feels like a natural way of being. Well, we're going to take a break now.